Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Telephone number is 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. You don't have to talk about either of these things. That's what Open Line Friday is. You can talk about anything, even on a day like this. I don't expect anybody to be off the reservation, but if you want to do that, feel free. Email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. So let's start with healthcare here, since that may have a resolution today. And if it does have a resolution, the important thing to keep in mind about this resolution is it's just the beginning. It's actually not a resolution. What is being voted on in the House today is by no means a final product. It's by no means what's going to end up, if it does, on the president's desk for signature. This all has to go to the Senate, and any number of other legislative and executive branch games need yet to be played. So even whatever happens with this House bill today, I mean, even if it passes, it's going to be subjected to massive change, I believe. But let's look at just the news of the day on this and see how much of this is accurate, how much of it's believable, and how much of it is spin. The big news from the New York Times, and therefore the opposition party today: Trump ultimatum, vote on health care Friday or Obamacare stays. The director of the Office of Management and Budget, director's named Mick Mulvaney, and he made clear last night that President Trump is finished negotiating on the health care bill and is demanding a vote today. And if the president does not get a vote to repeal and replace Obamacare today in the House, the ultimatum says that Trump said he just move on to other things. Screw it. We're going to leave health care where it is, and you people on Capitol Hill are going to get the blame for it. I'm moving on. I think this is true. I think this happened. In fact, I think there were other elements to this. I think part of the ultimatum might well have been that the president said, if you don't pass this, not only are you going to own Obamacare, but you have kissed off tax reform, because we can't do that without this being done. And so if you guys want to own the tax structure as it is, and if you guys want to own Obamacare, then go ahead and vote it down. I'm pretty confident that ultimatum was delivered sometime last night. Now, whether that ultimatum's been modified between last night and today, who can know? But I have no doubt, and I'm somewhat conflicted in passing this on, because in this instance, the New York Times, I think, on the basis of the substance of this is right. I think there was a mandate, or an ultimatum, rather, last night. Now, the Times says that if the president doesn't get the vote to repeal or replace Obamacare today in the House, he's going to move on to other priorities. Mulvaney, the budget director, said, according to a source in the room, during the tense talks with Republican members, senior administration source confirms to NBC News the very definitive, very clarifying message from the president and the administration's intention to move on should the health care bill fail to move forward to other matters, tax reform, trade, border security. Everything is going to fall by the wayside. Now, I think that's a bit of an overstatement. I do believe that the ultimatum might have contained references to no tax reform and you guys own Obamacare. Now, do any of you know the name Gabriel Sherman? Does the name ring a bell? You ought to know who it is. A guy works in New York Magazine. He's been hounding Roger Ailes for 10 years. Been hounding Roger Ailes in Fox News for 10 years. He wrote a book on Roger Ailes. He's been going to town on the sexual harassment story ever since Gretchen Carlson went public. Anyway, he has a story today that Steve Bannon is singularly and working alone behind the scenes trying to sabotage the repeal and replace of Obamacare because Bannon doesn't like Ryan. And Bannon wants Ryan to be finished. Bannon wants Ryan humiliated and done with because he doesn't like Ryan because he thinks Ryan is standing in the way of accomplishing Trump's populist message. This is in the news today. And Bright, I don't know how any of us are supposed to make sense of any of this. If that were true, this would mean that Bannon, one of two things is happening. Bannon is working against Trump's publicly stated desires behind the scenes, and nobody knows about it. That Bannon single-handedly is trying to torpedo this because what he wants is to get rid of Ryan, because only then can Trump's real agenda move forward. The other possibility is that Trump is aware of this and is not alluding to it, of course, in public, and is simply putting forth the public face that he supports Obamacare replaced and repeal, that he's teamed up with Ryan on this, that they both want this, are working hard to get it. While the New York Magazine over here says that Steve Bannon working alone to undermine the whole thing. Now, I have seen absolutely no evidence of this. The first I've ever heard of this. As you well know, there isn't any news media anymore. There is no news. There are organizations that we call the media that are absolutely and completely and totally political organizations that exist to do two things: advance the Democrat Party agenda, but just as energetically destroy the Republican or conservative agenda at the same time. And I'll tell you where you see that really playing out big time is on this surveillance thing. There's so much smoke here that you have to ignore to get to what that is really all about. And I am going to tell you that in a brief moment or two after the break. But because this is it's also crucial. And the upshot of that is that not only was there surveillance of the Trump campaign, not only was there surveillance by the Obama administration of the Trump transition, the media knew about it and was using the information they were being given from this surveillance in order to embarrass, humiliate, rip, criticize Trump and his upcoming administration. The media was in on this. The media view is that Obama is pure. Obama is savior-like. Obama is godlike. Obama is incapable of making mistakes. He's incapable of doing anything wrong. He's incapable of doing anything damaging. So if Obama was surveilling Trump and his team, there had to be a damn good reason, because Trump is dangerous. Trump poses an existential threat. All of those stories back in November and December and January in the New York Times and at CNN and at the Washington Post, where the word wiretap appeared and intercepted communications, is proof the media knew. The media was being fed whatever this surveillance was revealing. The key to understanding it all is that what was being surveilled were foreign agents on. The key to this really is, remember the day that we learned, and it wasn't that long ago, that Obama late in his administration signed an order allowing the NSA to share everything they were learning with 16 additional intelligence agencies and countries. And once that happened, then the media had countless sources for whatever was being learned, because Obama had authorized the NSA to share it. So there isn't any question that the Trump team was being surveilled. Indirectly, it was other people, foreign spies like that fat Russian ambassador so for being surveilled, knowing that Trump people had to be talking to him. No, it was done specifically to pick up on Trump people while not targeting them. This is where the whole masking and unmasking aspect of this comes out and enters the scene. But there isn't any question. And every effort to talk about how Trump was colluding with the Russians is nothing more than an effort to throw smoke over all this and to hide what happened. And my instinct, by the way, I think is being proved correct, and will be that much more established as time goes on. The salvo that Trump accused Obama of tapping his wires. You remember how everybody in the media went batty over that, and they still are. They went literally nuts over it. Now, we're to believe the reason they went nuts is because nobody dares insult our Obama that way. Our Obama is clean and pure. Our Obama would never do. Our Obama is unassailable. How dare Trump? But that's not why they can't drop it and let it go. This whole business of Russian collusion is all a manufactured issue to explain why Hillary lost the election. If you go back to before the election, they thought they were going to win, folks. They thought they were going to win in a landslide. There was no complaint about the Russians whatsoever before the election. Zip, zero, nada. That was manufactured afterwards. Oh, yeah, there was an investigation of the Russians in the DNC, and they were talking about the potential involvement with Trump, but that was a defamation operation. The fact is they thought they were going to win the election. They didn't think any of that was going to have one negative impact on Hillary's election or her victory. And it was only after she lost that they came up and they needed an excuse. Anyway, Trump throws that allegation at Obama out, and they start having kittens. And the reason they did is not because they were insulted that their boy Obama could be so insulted, that their lovable president, their unassailable figure, their great, like-minded individual could be attacked. It was because Trump was changing the definition of the game. He was changing the rules of the game. And he was, in the process, very, very close to exposing what has been going on, which is what I'm going to explain later on in the program, sooner rather than later. The healthcare vote, we don't know yet if it's going to happen today. It supposedly is, and theoretically might happen as soon as 3 o'clock. But until it actually starts, we won't know. There are various people saying that the no votes are plenty and sufficient. There are other sources say no. Trump's converted a bunch of the no votes to yes votes, and the no votes do not have enough to kill it. It's still the Wild West on this as to where it's going to end up and whether there's going to be a vote. And I think what it's going to come down to, and I'm just wildly speculating here, folks, but I think what it's going to come down to is at the moment of the vote, do the Republicans, I don't care what group they're part of. You know, by the way, speaking of that, we have the Freedom Caucus. We have the Tuesday group. We have the Wednesday morning group. We have the Friday afternoon group. How many different groups do we have in the House of Representatives? We got the conservative crowd, we have the moderates, we have the rhinos, we have the independents, we have the Tuesday morning bunch, we have the coffee class. So how many different groups make up the Republicans in the House of Representatives? How many groups are there on the Democrat side? None, unless you count the congressional black Caucasians. The Democrats don't have a moderate group. The Democrats don't have a conservative group. They don't have a Thursday morning club. They don't have a Friday night club. They are unified almost always behind whatever it is their congressional leader or their president wants. That's not the way it is, apparently, on the Republican side of the aisle. Some people say, this is good, Rush. This is good. This shows that there's diversity in the Republican Party, diversity of thought on a range of ideas, ongoing debate. This shows that the Republican Party is wide open and is a big tent for every... Yeah, but it also shows that getting the Republican Party unified is like trying to herd cats someday. And make no mistake. Make no mistake about it. And I'm not even sure President Trump realizes just how widely opposed he is by establishment Capitol Hill, Republicans and Democrats alike. In Trump world, everybody loves Trump. In Trump world, everybody wants to be Trump. In Trump world, you don't imagine people. The people that hate you are screwballs, and there are not very many of them. And they're either at MSNBC or CNN. Trump doesn't run around. He doesn't run around contemplating the people that hate him and don't like him. He doesn't look at the world that way. He's got a different outlook. And in so being, I'm not sure he's aware of just how much establishment opposition there is to him. Just not because him personally, he's an outsider. And he does a much better job at creating an audience, connecting with an audience, and building support than any of them do. And they're supposed to be the experts. There's all kinds of reasons for Trump to be envied, jealous of, disliked, or what have you. Anyway, let me take a brief time out. We'll come back. We're going to be working your phone calls into all this as well as the program unfolds. It'll be quick, so hang on. I had to take a business trip, but I still worked in the morning before I had to leave. I did some show prep, and I came across a fascinating piece in the UK Daily Mail, op-ed piece, written by I guess it's a reporter, maybe an op-ed writer in the UK named Katie Hopkins. And it was about the incident. Have you noticed, by the way, how that incident has vanished from the American media? And have you noticed how the reporting on that incident, it was just a British citizen. They're doing everything they can to sweep under the rug the fact that it was an Islamist extremist. The fact that he was a British citizen feeds into the point that Katie Hopkins was making. And without getting into the great details, I don't have time, but her basic point was these are no longer acts of extremism. This is what London has become. Not the UK, but London. This is what London has become. This is who we have allowed to immigrate. This is what we willingly brought in. This is what we should expect. This is who we are. All these candlelight vigils and so forth are a waste of time. These are not outside the norm things that we should not expect. She says we should expect them because it's who we are, but it's really good. I'll have details as we come back. What are they talking about? What are they talking about? They're talking about the vote coming up and whether or not to have it again. You know, folks, I still think people need, all of us, we need to stop every now and then and really pay attention to what's happening here. In the first place, the media covering any of these stories doesn't care about the substance of it. The only thing the media cares about is the horse race aspect. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? They want Trump to lose everything. Even though they may dislike Paul Ryan, they hate Trump. They want Trump to be embarrassed by this vote. They want Trump to lose his first legislature. If Trump had a bill that would come close to being perfect as to everything Democrats want, they would still be opposing it because they don't want Trump to win. They want no aspect of Trump is an invading outside force who cannot be allowed to prevail in Washington. If he does, then everything these people have known, everything they've invested in, everything they believe is turned upside down. Trump cannot be allowed to win. That's number one in terms of the media. That's also number one for many on Capitol Hill and many within the Washington establishment, lobbying groups, special interest groups, some think tanks. It's just unacceptable for Trump to win. Trump shouldn't be there. He's an outsider. He doesn't know how they do their jobs. They have a very cloaked environment where outsiders don't really see how they do their jobs. They don't really see the back and forth, the back scratching, the under the table stuff, the below the line, above the line stuff. People see results and react to it accordingly, but they don't see how it all works. And that's on purpose, so that nobody can understand from outside how it works, so that somebody from outside can't go in there and take it over. Well, hello. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He's walking in there and he's taking over. Now, just today, this is not going to be reported, but there were two substantive Trump promises kept via announcements today. Charter Communications, a big telecom company, making a $25 billion investment in the United States. They are ending all offshore call centers. So if you happen to be a Charter customer, and I happen to know some people who are, you ever have to call Charter customer service, you're going to end up talking to somebody in India or somewhere else. Charter has promised to stop that and is making a $25 billion investment in the USA. And they're opening a new call center in McAllen, Texas, 600 new jobs. And Trump had a meeting with these people. They came out of the meeting. He was upbeat, taking the time to thank everybody. He was on cloud nine. And that was the second win today. The first was signing all the documents to okay the pipeline. There's going to be oil flowing through the pipeline. Keystone Pipeline, everybody opposed from the Obama administration to Democrats. That's done. So there were two big wins today. You're not hearing about them because showing Trump winning, reporting Trump winning, no, it's not on the agenda. We can't do that. We can't have that. Our mission is to show Trump not knowing what he's doing. Our mission is to display Trump as confused and running up against brick walls, and Trump bringing this art of the deal type great negotiator stuff to Washington and being hammered and ending up on bended knee begging. That's the story they want you to believe of Donald Trump. But is it? Who canceled the vote in the House last night? Who canceled the vote? No, Ryan did not cancel. That's my point. Trump did. Presidents don't cancel House votes, but Trump did. And who's delivering an ultimatum on this next vote? It's Donald Trump. This is not supposed to be happening. Trump canceled that vote. Trump is the one that told Ryan that vote's not happening. We're going to spend some more time trying to get this done. My point is that Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do as often as he can. He's stormed into town, and he's trying to take control and fix the functioning dysfunction of much of Washington as much as he can. He's hated and reviled for doing it. It's not supposed to be possible. I mean, folks, it's just like you play second base for the New York Yankees, and somebody who's never played the game is not supposed to make the roster and threaten your job. Imagine if somebody did. They found some kid in the Sandlot who could play baseball better than the second base for the Yankees, and they signed the guy. The whole team would hate this guy until he starts showing them that he can contribute and win and help them get where they all want to go. That may not be the best analogy because Trump's got a little bit more qualifications than a Sandlot baseball player. But the point is, the entire estate, it's like Wall Street structured this way, too. They have their own language, and it's designed to keep outsiders from having the slightest idea what's going on in there. It's designed to keep outsiders outside. It's designed to be able to cloak and mask how things are really done there, because the limit of knowledge is very small and tight. Same thing with the way Washington works, even more than Wall Street. You talk about a closed game. So it's unusual that a president can try to cajole a House Speaker, even of his own party. A president can bring him up and try to persuade and offer deals here or there, but you don't have presidents coming in and telling the Speaker of the House how it's going to be. Now, there's another side to this. Ryan could be, I'm just speculating here since that seems to be the most popular sport in Washington these days, so let me play. It could well be that Ryan wants Trump to fail, wants Trump to bomb out, so lets him come in and take control of when the vote's going to be. Because I'm telling you, don't know if Ryan's part of this, I'm just telling you, the Capitol Hill establishment, the Washington establishment, the drive-by media will be happier than they've ever been if they can write the story that Trump has bombed out, that Trump has failed, that Trump can't accomplish because he doesn't know the system and he's been humiliated and embarrassed. And to the extent that they can tie whatever vote, if it fails to Trump, in their effort to make that story possible, anything is going on here. My point to you is that Trump, in many ways, is doing what he said he was going to do. And he's doing certainly what his voters expected. But the media, reporting what you think you know about this, keep in mind, be it this or be it the surveillance story, not interested in the substance of it. They're not interested in who's right or who's wrong. They're not interested in the morality of it. They're not interested, even if people have been committing crimes. The only reason that matters, the only way it matters, is if the Republicans are the ones found committing crimes. If the Democrats are found to be committing crimes, that'll be ignored and excused as, well, they had to stop Trump. And Obama, no matter what you want, Obama is never, ever going to be reported on negatively, even if they find that Obama did personally order all of this stuff. And even if there was an investigation, even if there were trials, and if there was a guilty conviction, Obama would still not be reported on negatively by this media. And that's the world in which we are all functioning, and that's the world in which Trump is all functioning. So let me take a break. We've got, let's see, I got a couple of phone calls I wish to start with. I was going to delve in here to some of the, brief outline substance of the health care bill, but I'm going to wait for a phone call to provide that transition. That should happen when we get back. When I say that Trump canceled the vote, the vote was actually canceled when Trump was in a meeting and he got a call informing him that Ryan had canceled the vote. I'm suggesting to you the reason that vote was canceled was because of Trump. Now, you might say, well, no, Ryan canceled it because he knew he didn't have the votes. But why is that? Why, if you don't have the votes? I mean, Trump is ever present and is looming over all of this in ways that presidents don't. Remember the separation of powers. Congress got its bailiwick and you don't enter it. The president's got his and you don't enter it. Trump is entering the legislative bailiwick. But in all of this, another thing, have you noticed we never, ever hear about anything involving the Democrats? What do the Democrats think of this bill? I mean, everybody admits Obamacare's falling apart. The premiums are rising, the deductibles are rising, which means nobody has coverage. If you have premiums that you can barely afford somehow, some way, but the deductible is so high that you can't use it, you essentially don't have coverage. If you have a health insurance plan that you can't use because you can't afford it, and that's what you have if you got it from one of Obama's exchanges, then you don't have coverage. What good is it if you can't use it? And this circumstance, people in the exchanges, their circumstances are worsening every day. Their premiums are up 130%. Their deductibles are sometimes up 300%. And there's no end in sight to this. And over here we have the Democrats. And the media doesn't even go ask them what they think of this repeal and replace bill. They're not even a part of the equation. Well, of course, they don't have the numbers to stop it in the House. They're so vastly outnumbered. But what if some of them decided to cross the aisle and vote with the Republicans on this? What if an effort were made for that to happen? And if they did, if they found the fact that they're not doing so sends a signal to me. They're wedded to Obamacare as a party. Anyway, let me get to the phones. Chuck, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Glad you called, sir. You're up first on Open Line Friday today. Hi.
Well, thank you, sir. Two things. Number one, thank you for your leukemia efforts. And number two, you mentioned separation of powers. Before I talked to you, I was on Hillsdale College looking at one of their videos.
Right.
My question is, I am totally confused about this Republican plan. I hear things like premiums. I hear things like deductibles. I hear things like the list of things that are eligible or essential items to be included. Sounds to me like it's just Obamacare, and I'm totally disappointed. I'd also like to know where we're going to get our insurance. Is it going to be a government market again? That's what it sounds like. And lastly, and I don't know if anybody's ever touched on this, will the members of Congress have to be under the same plan? I'll listen to your answer.
Well, that last question, I don't know. Frankly, that is not of paramount interest to me. Now, your other questions are far more fascinating and interesting. Now, you think that what's being discussed here is just like Obamacare. It's the same this, it's the same that. It doesn't get rid of that. We got to read, got to pass some of it to find out what's in it. That story's even out there. Have you seen that? You have a history repeating itself. Sometimes you just throw up your hands. Say, what the hell are we doing here? What do you mean we have to pass this to find out what's in it? There's actually a couple of Republican congressmen out there saying that now. Don't think that's not coincidental. We have to pass it to find out what's in it. I'm throwing back with Pelosi. Chuck, let me run something. Let me tell you some things about this that are being said about it. And let me tell you if you've heard this, if you believe it. Are you still with me?
I'm with you.
Okay. This first version of Obamacare improves Medicaid. It expands health savings accounts. It reintroduces market forces into the system. It repeals a bunch of taxes. And down the line will repeal the federal debt by hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. Have you heard that, and do you believe it?
I've heard those things, and I want to believe it.
Well,
I'm not so sure that I believe it right now. I haven't seen the evidence of it.
Here's what I understand is going on, and I by no means can lay claim to understanding all of this, because I think it's like many other things. I don't think there's maybe even one person who understands all of it. But I think...
Yeah, but you're the closest.
Well, I don't know. You tell me when I finish here. I'm just going to tell you what I think is going on. I've listened to enough people talk now, and I've heard objections. And why don't we just? Here's what I've heard: load the bill up with everything you want. If you think it's going to die anyway in the Senate, load it up with everything you want. Get on the record for really repealing it and really replacing it, and send it over there, and let the Senate be responsible for it going down.
I've heard that.
Yep, that's a theory of Dr. Krauthammer's. But that's not what's going on here. The people behind this actually want this to work, and they've got 3 phases. Remember in Obamacare, 20,000 some odd pages? The real power to make changes and reforms and implement things is the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Correct.
On so many pages, you will read, as the Secretary so directs, as the Secretary shall dictate, as the Secretary shall. So the plan here, this is just step 1. This does not attempt to repeal it. This does not attempt to replace it, because there are 3 phases here. You pass this, as much of it as you can, using budget reconciliation, and this is 51 votes. After this phase is passed, then Tom Price is going to go to town ripping all the Obamacare EDHs out, all of the explicit Obamacare health benefits that have raised prices, mandated, are going to be ripped out, as the Secretary may determine, shall determine. They want to leave it intact to the extent that Tom Price can rip the hell out of it, as the bill allows him to do. After that, Phase 3 gets rid of the proscription against insurance companies not being able to sell policies across state lines. I have to take a break here. I'm not finished answering your question. This is the best summation of what I've heard from people who really believe. I was going to say, I think some people have not done a good job of selling this. I think the right way to say this is a lot of people have done a very good job misrepresenting it. And I think we always folks, I hate to have to say this. I hate to have to know that this is true and deal with it, but we still have to acknowledge that the opposition of Donald Trump on Capitol Hill has no boundaries. People of, all three sexual orientations, both political parties, House and Senate, think tanks, banks, you name it. And because of all this, I have really undertaken an effort to understand what they're trying to do with this, the people that believe in it. And I was just starting to explain it to the caller who called us and said, I don't understand why this thing should have never seen the light of day. Everything I'm hearing about it's Obamacare light. And I said, what if I told you that this bill tremendously improves Medicaid, expands health savings accounts, reintroduces, not totally, but gets the ball rolling on reintroducing market forces into the system via the health savings accounts, repeals a bunch of taxes and mandates, and reduces the federal debt. As a first step, have you heard that? If you heard that that's what's in it, based on everything else you've heard, would you believe it? As I understand it, this is what the people who want this to happen, whoever they are, be it the president, Paul Ryan, I don't know the people who do and don't want this to happen, but the architects of this, and I would put Vice President Pence in the circle of people that have designed this. One of the arguments or questions that people have is, why are there three phases? Why don't we just repeal it and replace it in one fell swoop? Just send a repeal bill up like they did 6 times. And I've asked that question. And the answer I've gotten is that it's not the responsible way to do it, because there's an opportunity here to do a lot of really good things. But we can't do it all at once. And we're going to have trouble doing it anyway because of the makeup in the Senate, where there are only 52 Republican votes. So just in a brief outline fashion, as it's been explained to me, the objective here is first to have this bill that's being voted on maybe today in the House pass and get sent to the Senate, understanding that this is not the bill that's going to be sent to the president to sign, understanding that this is not the final form. This is just getting the ball rolling. That the people behind this are not naive enough to think that the first bill they write and submit is going to be signed off on by everybody, survive a conference committee meeting, and sent to the president. It's going to undergo massive changes, and it may not pass out of the Senate anyway. But the objective is to actually fix the problem, with the realization that the fix cannot occur overnight, because our healthcare circumstance right now is the result of at least 50 years of incremental government meddling. Not to say it's going to take 50 years to stop it or to replace it or overturn it, but it's not something that can be done overnight. And the key is to leave enough of Obamacare intact to empower our Health and Human Secretary, Tom Price, to extract a bunch of things as permitted by the law that the Obama people put in that didn't get put in as part of the original legislation. One of the things about the original Obamacare bill was it left the discretion on much of the health benefits and the taxes and any number of things up to the secretary. In this case, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. The people behind this bill want to be able to use those provisions to strip it bare, to take those things out. What kind of things am I talking about? Well, just in an article, I think from, I'm not sure it's USA Today, the GOP bill eliminates the Obama statute's fines on those who do not obtain coverage. It eliminates the generous subsidies. It doesn't eliminate subsidies. It eliminates these out of control, not based in reality subsidies that were used to buy support or buy votes. Republican tax credits would be based on age, not income. The bill would end Obama's Medicaid expansion. It would trim future federal financing for the federal state program and let states impose work requirements on some of its 70 million beneficiaries. House leaders recently proposed a fresh amendment to be voted on today, repealing Obama's requirement that insurers cover 10 specified services. These are among the things they want Tom Price to pull out. These 10 specified services that Obama made insurance companies cover for everybody, which raised premiums. Maternity and mental health care. What if you're a guy and you don't need maternal leave? You have to buy it anyway under Obamacare. It gets factored into what the insurance company charges you because Obama put in that it's mandatory. And he didn't put in mandatory for only pregnant women, just for everybody. It ran everybody's premiums up. Same thing with mental health care. What if you don't need it? Doesn't matter. You're buying it. No matter what your age, no matter what your military or your mental condition, no matter what your health status, you have to buy mental health. There are countless other little things like that the Obamacare law imposes on people that Kathleen Sebelius, just by design, implemented because the bill, Obamacare, granted her the discretion to do so. Maternity leave for men is one glaring example, and there are tons of things like that. Now, the objective is to get this bill passed. I should tell you, by the way, I don't know if this is going to mean anything to you, Grover Norquist, who is the head honcho for Americans for Tax Reform, you're not looking like you have a whole lot of, when I say that name, you're not beaming in there. What do you think? Why not? What's the, well, just tell me, give me one or two. Well, I know, but why? Why? Oh, well, I know he said something about me. Grover will fundraise off me and then criticize me after he's raised them. But that doesn't matter. That's part and parcel of being up here. And everybody else shooting at you from down there. Anyway, Norquist has said in his analysis that this bill cuts $1 trillion in taxes over 10 years. And it cuts $1 trillion in spending over a decade. Grover Norquist says that this version that may or may not be voted on today contains the biggest tax cut since Reagan. The Tea Party Express, this is from thehill.com, Tea Party Express has decided to back the Republican bill to repeal and replace Obamacare hours before a pivotal vote in the House. Now, the Tea Party Express co-founder Sal Russo, he wrote in a post on Medium, he said, admittedly, this is far from a perfect repeal, and no conservative would propose this if it weren't for the reality of the obstructionist Democrats in the Senate. Russo, by the way, is a former staffer to Reagan. He went on to paraphrase the conservative president's approach to negotiations with the Democrats. He said, if they offer you half a loaf, what do? You take half a loaf and you come back for more. That is apparently the thinking here. Not just from the Tea Party, but I'm talking about the Trump White House and everybody involved in trying to get this done. The thing, like for the Freedom Caucus guys, the conservative caucus in the House that's dead set against this, and supposedly they're 20 to 25, maybe 27 votes opposing it. The way they're being sold, the way they're being pitched is, hey, look, guys, this is just the first vote, and it's not by any stretch the bill that's going to end up anywhere. This gets the ball rolling. If we don't get the ball rolling, we're not going to get anything. If we don't get the ball rolling on this, we're going to get nothing. They are countering by saying, yeah, but if you don't have if you don't have a bunch of conservative things that form a foundation in this, then they're never going to get in there. And traditionally, they're right about that. The Congress is not a conservative institution. So these guys are holding out for getting as much of a conservative foundation on which to build in the bill. The Tea Party Express coming along. These are the people that there wasn't a specific Tea Party leader. There wasn't a specific Tea Party. But the Tea Party, keep in mind, sprung to life because of Obamacare and Obama's just runaway spending, which scared the heck out of them for the future of their kids and their grandkids, running up this debt so rapidly that it was obscene. So they have come around here and said, we will continue to support the efforts of conservatives to improve the bill and to advance the plan to repeal and replace Obamacare, but regardless of the outcome of specific amendments, we must all keep Reagan's advice in mind and plan on going back for more. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, that's a cop-out because we're never going to go back for more. And you're remembering Senator Cotton from Arkansas. There isn't going to be phase 2. There isn't going to be phase 3. Well, the people who are really pushing this believe there will be. It is their absolute intention for there to be. Vice President Pence, I know, desperately wants this fixed and gotten rid of, and even up to and it's getting rid of the restriction on insurance companies not being able to sell nationally. That would be a huge thing. And, of course, this gets in the weeds here, but what can you pass with budget reconciliation and what can you not legally? And this involves the Senate parliamentarian ruling on what you can and can't do under reconciliation. And reconciliation is short for budget reconciliation, and because the budget has to be passed, it is exempt from the 60-vote rule in the Senate. So you try to get as much as you can. Much of Obamacare was passed through reconciliation because they were never going to get 60 votes for it, even on the Democrat side. So what was used for reconciliation to pass it is going to be used in this bill to get rid of it. But that's still going to leave a lot of things that are untouched. And that's where the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Price, comes into the picture and starts just eliminating things that were added by Kathleen Sebelius and others during the Obama administration. And that's as best as I understand it. That is the first step. That is nobody's trying to sell it as perfect. Nobody's trying to sell it as thoroughbred conservative. Nobody's trying to sell it as we repeal and replace Obamacare with this bill, because it doesn't happen. This still has to go to the Senate, where it may well die. The Democrats, as you know, never get mentioned in this. They are never reported on. They're never discussed. They are never considered factors in any of this. And the reason for that is that the media and everybody else wants this to crumble, and they want it to fall apart, and they want all of that to be on the Republicans. They would love for Trump and Ryan to take control of this and have it bomb out just like Obamacare did. But when that happens, it's no longer Obamacare. It's either Ryan care or Trump care. There's also that aspect of it, too, that the Democrats don't want it to succeed. And now we're back to the substance has nothing to do with it. It's just a horse race. Quick time out. Back to your phone calls on Open Line Friday after that. Repeal and replace bill. We run the show. We run the show. Why don't we just come up with that and send it up there and make them vote against it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the conservatives do not run Capitol Hill. I mean, can I be blunt here about something? How many members of the House of Representatives do the Republicans have? What's the number? 200 some odd. What's the number? 230? 230? What was it? Well, it's in that. Don't need the exact number, but it's over 200, right? How many in the Freedom Caucus? How many admitted conservatives? 30 that are in this group. 35. You would think that if this were conservative, it'd be all of them may be in the Freedom Caucus, wouldn't you? I know we got to have some rhinos in there, some moderates, but that's not even half of the place has people who will join a conservative caucus. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. So I said, look, all that's happened here is we won an election in November. Jim in Old Wine, Iowa. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hey, Rush. How you doing? Long-time listener. My wife, Dawn, has been a longer-time listener to me, but I listen kind of right along with her, too. So
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I'm just kind of wondering, one of the frustrated multitude when it comes to this whole healthcare thing, why can it not just go back to normal competition like everything else? Just a quick history. I worked for a company for over 28 years, had group health insurance, retired in about 2010, and I was paying about $700 a month out of my checks toward health care. When I left, they offered me COBRA, which is their replacement, saying, oh, you can be on your own health care, but you just have to pay for it for $1,400. So
I had to do that, too. I had to do COBRA. Yeah. When I moved to New York, I had to do COBRA.
But mine was ridiculously twice as much as I was paying before, so I said, this is stupid. So I shopped online and made some phone calls, got insurance for a family of 5, very basic but, good covered plan for about $380 a month. In just later that year, my wife and I tried to get together a business that she used to be in the business of processing health insurance care claims. So we said, let's get into that. So we formed a company and started getting. I went out visiting all those doctors. That's about the time Obamacare really started coming into place. And most of the older doctors were saying before this officially comes, that they have to go under it, they were going to retire.
Yeah, no. Well,
they knew then this was going to be bad. Socialized medicine as a whole has never worked anywhere in the world.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. That's the point. 2 stories on this, but here's one headline. Trump, the deal maker, projects bravado, but behind the scenes faces rare self-doubt. My friends, as you know, I am a powerful and influential member of the media, and I know people. And I can tell you that nobody I know has seen the one shred of evidence that would support this. That Trump is sulking around the White House behind who in the world would know this and leak it? Who in the world would Trump display this self-doubt to? Who would Trump go up? Yeah, it's not at all like I thought it was going to. Oh, man, this is so. Oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Blah, blah. Who would he say that to? You would think if that's true, he would have somebody really, really close that he trusts that he would confide to, and yet that person would go running off to the New York Times and say, hey, you know what? This guy's really starting to doubt himself in there. When a person is having a crisis in confidence, I submit that you can tell without them telling you. In the case of Trump established a personality during the campaign, established a personality and maintained it during the transition. His personality as president, have you seen dramatic changes? Have you found yourself asking, gee, why is the president so down in the dumps? Man, the president doesn't seem like the same guy. Have you found, I don't know, have you? I haven't, but have you? Any of you found yourself reacting to Trump that way? This is classic fake news. Trump, the deal maker, projects bravado, but behind scenes faces rare self-doubt. How about the timing of that? Now, on this selling insurance across state lines, this is the one thing I don't understand. I haven't had anybody explain to me why this has to be the last thing done, the so-called Phase 3. I don't know why it can't be here in Phase 1. I've asked, and the answers I've gotten have been gobbledygook. they've ranged from, well, insurance is a powerful lobby up here. Well, why wouldn't they want to be able to sell across state? Because, Rush, they've got in-state monopolies. And they're big donors, okay? But at some point, either now or phase 2, phase 3, this is going to have to end. The whole objective here is to lower prices. Would everybody agree? The whole objective is to lower prices. If the mandates for coverage are done away with, in other words, if you by law have to have coverage, and the insurance companies cannot compete across state lines because they have in-state monopoly, then there's no competition for price reduction. They can charge whatever they want if you have to buy it. If you have no choice, if you have no alternative company to buy from, if there's only one or two companies in your state, and as Obamacare mandates you to have insurance, you're stuck, folks. There is nothing that's going to bring prices down. They're going to continue to go up. That is part and parcel of the problem with monopolies. But that's not the only mandate. The first mandate is for coverage. Then there is a requirement to buy insurance. Now, you might think they're the same thing, and they arguably might be. But the law, the mandate, that involves a penalty if you fail to comply. It's a financial penalty. Originally, they were going to put you in jail. They wanted the option to put you in jail under Obamacare if you didn't buy insurance. So the mandate that you buy it and then the requirement that you buy insurance, if those two things are erased, if you don't have to buy it, then the people selling it are going to have to make it attractive to you. Now, they know you want it because it's health care and you don't want to be left hanging should a catastrophe happen, but it's a big cry from being forced to. This is why the insurance companies signed on to Obamacare first. It was the greatest godsend they'd ever had. Imagine if Congress passed a law mandating every man, woman, and child to buy an iPhone. A, what do you think they would cost? And B, what would you say of the requirement? What if you don't like Apple? What if you want a Samsung? What if you want some cheap flip phone or something? Sorry, you have to buy an iPhone. This is what Obamacare did. So you eliminate that. And by eliminating the mandate, automatically prices are going to come down. Then you eliminate the requirement to purchase insurance. Well, then the people that sell it are going to have to make it more attractive. The thing I don't understand, I haven't had anybody explain this to me in a satisfactory way, and I probably haven't asked enough people. I don't know why eliminating the cannot sell across state lines isn't done right now. There may be a good economic reason for it. There may be a responsible economic reason. There may be a political reason. Insurance companies are big donors and lobbyists and so forth. But I think something like that you put in this bill, and that sweetens the pot over in the Senate and makes it much more attractive and makes the public much more supportive of it. If you put that in there, that eliminate this business that insurance companies can only sell in certain states. But there's a reason. As I say, I haven't had it explained to me in a way that I understand. But it's in the plan. It's in the plan for way down the line, phase 2 or phase 3. Now, I do know this. One of the groups who do not want insurance to be sold across state lines is state insurance commissions and commissioners. Bureaucrats. They have a lot of power. If there's only one or two insurance companies in their state, and in many states, the people who live in them only have one insurance company now. Insurance companies are fleeing Obamacare left and right in droves. And there are a lot of people in this country who only have one insurance company. And the state insurance commission and commissioners have a lot of power. And they're opposed to anything that would limit or water down their power in a lot of ways. So anyway, let me look at the clock. Yeah, let me squeeze another call in here. At some point, folks, I'm going to transition here to the latest on intelligence gathering and what's happening with that. Because James Rosen at Fox reported yesterday that just groundbreaking news was going to reveal itself today from the NSA. That would indicate Trump and his people were, in fact, surveilled. I got the impression that there's a whistleblower at the NSA, or at least somebody who's made the evidence available. I frankly think we've already got the evidence, and it's been published in the New York Times and Washington Post. I don't think there's any doubt that the Obama administration was surveilling the Trump campaign and then the Trump transition. I don't think there's any doubt about it. The proof is the fact that the fruits of that surveillance have been published for months in the New York Times and the Washington Post. We know that it was happening. What we don't know is, was it direct surveillance or was it incidental? And I've told you what I think it is. I think the Obama administration was purposely and legally surveilling people like the Russian ambassador and other foreign actors. But when I read that Obama signed an order allowing our intelligence agencies to share everything they were learning with 16 additional intelligence agencies in other countries, I said, whoa. And this was in November, December. After the election, I said, what is this? And then Flynn is unmasked. He was not targeted, but yet they got rid of him. So what I think has been going on is that the Obama administration has been surveilling these foreign actors, picking up those foreign actors' conversations with Americans, Trump people as well. And I think they've been unmasking them. And I think that's what they've been leaking to the media. And I think they have been violating the law. You're not supposed to reveal the names of Americans who your foreign targets are caught talking to. If they're not the target, you don't have a warrant for them, then they're referred to as American number 1 or American number 2, however many Americans are in the transcript of the phone call, say, that you have intercepted. And I think what's happened here is these Americans have been identified. And I think what they've said has been leaked unlawfully to the media. And I think the media has unwittingly, by running that stuff in November and December and January, the media has unwittingly itself unmasked what was a surveillance operation of Trump people and maybe Trump himself. But it was never direct. Therefore, it never required a warrant. It never needed a FISA warrant because, well, not for Trump. Just get a warrant to surveil that Russian ambassador or anybody from Iran or Iraq who happens to be here or at home or what have you. You know, during a transition, the Trump transitions team is going to be talking to all kinds of people from foreign countries. So you surveil them, you pick up what the Trump people are saying, and then you leak that there's collusion going on. You give that to the media reports collusion, always saying somewhere in the story, no evidence has been found, but the story, the rest of it, the way it's written, is designed to make you think that there's all kinds of collusion going on, and it's so obvious that you don't need evidence. And I think this is one of the, if this were ever proven, this is so much bigger than Watergate. Ever even attempted to be. And what's got everybody running around now like stuck pigs is Trump accusing them of it. He went specific in saying Trump Tower was surveilled. But that threw the ball right back at him. So everything here, every time this little pencil neck guy from California, Schiff, goes out there, it's designed to throw smoke over everything. The Democrats, whenever they speak about this, when they start talking about collusion between the Russians and Trump to screw the election, that's all a smokescreen to divert you from what was really happening. And what was really happening was Trump people were being surveilled, incidentally, and then being unmasked. And even if they weren't unmasked, these people were leaking to the media, and the media was reporting what they were leaked. And they amplified it and made it sound like all kinds of illegal collusion was going on. They'd already laid the foundation that Trump worked with Putin to steal the election from Hillary. They add this stuff on top of it. I don't think we need whatever the NSA is going to give James Rosen. It's already been in the New York Times. It's already been in the Washington Post, and it's been all over CNN. I have to take a break. We'll be back. Is that Coin or Colon? I can't tell which in Poughkeepsie. Cohn in Poughkeepsie. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. I was told to make this quick, so I want to know what happens in 4 years' time if the Democrats regain presidency. All the stuff they say they're going to take out of the Obamacare is going to be just put back in. So we have to do it now. They got to just...
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Let me explain what it is. It's an excellent question. Here's in the three-phase or multi-phase process. Phase one here, the reason you can't send a clean bill over there, let me just tell you flat out, the reason they say in the House that they can't do a clean repeal, just send a bill over, we are repealing Obamacare and send it to the Senate, is the Senate is a completely different functioning thing. There's reconciliation, there's filibusters, there's rules on the fly, rules made on the go. They involve the parliamentarian over what you can do here. And as much of that as can be anticipated has been put into this first effort to make it as smooth as possible in the Senate, knowing full well it isn't going to be. Now, as to the question here, it's a very astute question. He's okay, look, they get into phase two and then they have our Secretary of Health and Human Services pull out those drastic Obamacare restrictions, just yank them out. His question is, what happens if we lose in 2020? The Democrats win. We haven't repealed all of Obamacare, and a new Health and Human Secretary just puts all that stuff and more back in. Well, that is one of the arguments that the Freedom Caucus is making in their opposition to the bill. If you're going to have them pulled out, if you're going to do this so that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Price, can pull all those things out that Sebelius and Obama put in there, why not make that official as part of legislation so it's done with? The answer is that will happen either in phase two or phase three. But they're afraid that if they go for that in phase one, that the Senate is going to automatically reject it as DOA and it dies. And they want the opportunity, at least for Price, to be able to strip this thing naked. Now, admittedly, their plan is multi-phased. You've heard them say it. They're standing by it. There have been all kinds of helpful suggestions to do this in one swoop. Forget this 2- and 3-phase business. Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas, says you all are smoking something if you think there's going to be a phase 2 or phase 3. He's of the opinion that the people in the House just want this passed and they're done. They've washed their hands with it, mission accomplished, and no more. Well, that may be the attitude of the House, but I don't think that's the attitude of the Trump administration. And by the Trump administration is not just Trump. There's somebody over there named Mike Pence, who is as thoroughbred a conservative as you can find. And there are other people in there who want this obliterated. But they just don't think it can be done in one clean, hey, Senate, here's a bill. We just passed it that totally wipes out Obamacare. Sign this thing, pass it so we can send it up to Trump. They don't think that's going to happen. And they're probably right. That did happen. I'm very convinced. In fact, it may have even included tax reform in it. They're loaded for bear. Now, grab soundbite number 1. This last night on CNN, and it's on a program called CNN Tonight. I guess that's supposed to mean something. I don't know who hosts it, but the guests CNN senior political analyst Mark Preston, Daily Beast columnist Matt Lewis, and senior political correspondent Nia Malika Henderson. And they're having a panel discussion about the Obamacare repeal or replacement bill. And get this exchange.
Let's put aside that it's Donald Trump right now and he tends to go after his enemies. In Washington, it's all about blame. If it doesn't work out, who are we going to blame, right?
It's not just who does Donald Trump blame, who does Breitbart blame,
right.
Who does Rush Limbaugh blame?
Paul Ryan, Paul Ryan, Paul Ryan.
Who does Rush Limbaugh blame? That's the story. Who am I going to blame if the bill goes down? And that was Nia Malika Henderson. No, it was Matt Lewis who said, who does Rush Limbaugh blame? And the answer, Nia Malika Henderson said, Paul Ryan, Paul Ryan, Paul Ryan. So, well, I don't even know that it's going to fail. My whole point is all these people are convinced it's going to fail. They were convinced Hillary was going to win. They were convinced Trump was going to lose. They were so convinced that Hillary was going to win and that Trump was going to lose, they weren't even talking about collusion being the reason for it. The reason Trump was going to lose is because he's a bigot. The reason Trump was going to lose is because he's a pig. Because Trump is outrageous. He's mean-spirited. He's politically incorrect. He makes fun of people. There was no way he was going to win. Hillary was going to continue Obamaism, and that meant perfection, and they weren't even talking about collusion. They weren't even talking about it. The collusion they were talking about was the Russians hacking the DNC server, which just illustrated how they screwed Bernie Sanders, not how the Russians helped Trump. Well, we don't know it's going to fail. You mean if it does fail, who am I going to blame? I'm not going to answer the question. I'm not going to answer a hypothetical. It's a hypothetical that it fails. Why should I participate in this bout of pessimism, defeatism, and negativism? I'm sorry. I instinctively recoil from that stuff. Now, these guys revel in it. They revel in defeatism, pessimism, negativism, and they channel it, they talk about it, they analyze it. Naturally, if this vote is at 3:30 or after, then that's going to be after this program ends today. So for those wondering who I'm going to blame, they'll have to wait till Monday. I might hide a little blurb on my website to give some indication. We have this little section there called Just In from Rush. And whenever I feel like throwing something out, I half the time forget that it's there. You know, we get this brand new website design, and it's awesome. But I forget that we added this feature, and I'm the one that demanded it. And sometimes I just forget it. And then I'll get caustic emails from subscribers. What, nothing just in lately, Rush? You're not thinking about things? Huh? And oh my gosh, I haven't posted a just in a long time. So I might throw out. Well, depending on how it happens, how can I know who to blame here if we don't even know to blame anybody? We don't know it's going to fail. Now, you're trying to suck me in to naming names here on a hypothetical that it fails. I don't know. My gut instinctive answer to things like that is to find the nearest Democrat. Because I think when you want to talk about failure and what, don't, Rush, I can hear you. That's a cop-out, Rush. We're talking Republicans here. The Democrats are not a factor. They are when you get to the Senate, and that has a lot to do with the way things are being done in the House. But you can never, I get blue in the face. You can never forget how establishment Washington, establishment Capitol Hill, wants Trump to fail. It's not even personal in many ways. It's just self-preservation. I mean, look it. You've spent your life trying to get into this elite club. And one of the reasons you want to get in is because it's really, really special. And you're in it because not just everybody's qualified. Oh, no, it's really special. And they do things that other people just can't do. They know things other people don't know. They know things other people are not allowed to know. They are really, really important people in the establishment. Well, the last thing they want is some neophyte flying in on a gold-plated airplane, taking over and showing everybody how, hey, it's not that complicated and it's not that hard. And in fact, much of what's been going on here is a bunch of BS. So they don't want, there's just not, and I'm not sure Trump is aware of this. To be honest with you, I'm not sure Trump really knows how much institutional opposition he has. Not political, but just institutional, in terms of him being the outsider. This is, if you've been running, let me use this term loosely, if you've been running a scam for decades, and you've been getting away with it, and one of the ways you get away with it is you keep what you do and how you do it removed from public view. I mean, the things that really happen to people that really make it happen, how the things end up really happening, you don't see. You hear it discussed in traditional political terms, but the real power behind this, you don't see it. And it all gets upset one day by somebody that has never spent a day in that system. That's a scary, frightening thing. Blow up your entire universe. Now, on to this surveillance business. Now, I've already given many indications here of my overall opinion of this, but because of Devin Nunes and his announcement on Wednesday that he's come across incidental intelligence sufficiently important that he thought the president had to know, so he takes it up there. This has led to shock and anger and outcries of malfeasance from that pencil neck on the Democrat side in that committee, Adam Schiff, and the media, and they've been going nuts, saying that Nunes needs to resign from the committee. That's what the Democrats say about everything goes on they don't like. You need to resign. You have committed a crime. You have validated our systems and our principles, and you need to go. You are unfit. That's how they get rid of it. They clear the decks. They don't like a level playing field. They don't want anybody else on it. So Nunes explained why he did it. He wanted presidents under assault. I found some evidence here the president should know. Nunes has now taken another step. There was another House Intelligence Committee meeting that was scheduled for next week. And the Republican chairman has canceled that meeting. It was a further investigation into the activities of the Russians and our elections. And instead, what has been scheduled in place of it is a private session, not public. It's called closed. A closed session with Comey. Nunes wants Comey to come up and answer some questions about things that Nunes has just recently learned. So he's canceled the public hearing in its probe of allegations of Russian interference, saying the panel needed to hear from directors of the FBI and the NSA in a closed session instead. And Pencilneck is having a cow over this. He went out and had his own press conference to talk about what a bad guy Trump is, what a guilty guy Trump is, how unfortunate all this is, and how Nunes is behaving unlike any chairman he's ever known. Here's a little bit about Pencilneck. Grab soundbite 33 and maybe 34. After Nunes did his presser this morning, then Pencilneck went out and did his, and there's just a portion of it.
I assume, without knowing any better, that what the chairman is talking about is he's looked at communications that were incidentally collected, that is, not targeted at the president. So no defense for the president, not a full validation or vindication of the president, not a partial validation of the president, a zero validation of the president, even if you accept what the chairman has said.
And then one more, soundbite 33.
The chairman, in a what appears to be a dead of night excursion, obtains or reviews some documents that he has not shared with his own committee. And it's not just that he hasn't shared them with Democrats on the committee, he hasn't shared them with Republicans on the committee. All of us are essentially in the dark. But what was most concerning about that whole incident is taking that information to the White House.
Right. The reason that's disconcerting is because that's not fair. That's not fair. You shouldn't be taking things up that exonerate the president. You shouldn't be taking things that are exculpatory up there before we get a chance to see it and distort it. Now, here is what I think, just to restate this, has gone on. And much of this we know. Much of this we already know. Much of this has already been reported. What I'm going to do is put it in a context of sorts. In the waning days of his presidency, in November and in December and early January, President Barack Hussein changed the rules regarding raw intelligence. He made an 11th-hour rule change allowing the National Security Agency to share certain raw information with 16 other intelligence agencies, many of them foreign countries. Why? Why do this on your way out the door? Why? Raw intelligence is simply the result of things with mass telephone surveillance. Things like Echelon, which is the massive computer hoover that the NSA has, sweeping up everything. And then there are the specific investigations of foreign actors, many of whom the Trump transition team would be communicating with as part of the transition. So you target the foreign actors, and in the process, you overhear who they're speaking to. That is raw intelligence, and now Obama signed a rule change allowing 16 others to get it. 16 other intelligence agencies, many of them from foreign countries, such as the European Union. The rule change was put into effect after the raw data was gathered about the Trump team, not before. The rule change was after the Obama embeds realized what they had. Now, was the rule changed in a desperate attempt to provide legal cover for what was already legally shared? Because by the time that Obama signed the rule to share this data, it had already appeared in the New York Times. It had already appeared in the Washington Post. All of those stories in November after the election, all the way through December, and up to Inauguration Day, that had unnamed intelligence community sources reporting on very bad things that they had seen that indicated it was possible, that there might have been a slight possibility that there might have been some collusion. It could have happened between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Read on and read on and read on, and you find a paragraph where they say, no hard evidence has yet been accumulated, but the investigation is ongoing. Well, the rule was changed, I think, in an attempt to provide legal cover for what had already been shared. I think Obama shared the stuff. Remember now, Hillary Clinton was going to win. In their minds, Hillary was going to win and win in a landslide. And even on election night, they thought so. Now, when information about Team Trump was, we're told, illegally gathered, the assumption would have been that any illegal activity would never be discovered, and they certainly wouldn't need to use it because Trump wasn't going to win. Loretta Lynch would still be the AG in any event. If Hillary had won and they had all this raw data, Loretta Lynch would still be the AG. Obama would be president through January 20th, and Hillary would take over. And whoever she put in to replace Loretta Lynch and whoever she replaced, if anybody, Comey with, the Democrats and the left would remain in firm control of all of this information. All that incriminating information, if they had to, could be destroyed. They could bury it. They could forget it. All of that illegal information, or maybe illegal on the fringes, may have been legally collected. It might have been illegally disseminated because the Americans overheard, should have been masked and not part of leaks. That's where the potential criminality is. The information gathered about Trump and his team may not be subject to normal wiretapping laws, but that doesn't mean rules don't exist. Warrantless surveillance is legally collected if it involves people abroad and those here at home. But once it's collected, that's when the rules apply. Innocent people's identity must be protected, but Trump's and his team identity were not. The media found out and reported whatever the intel agencies wanted to share of that raw data. So he changes the rule on January 3rd, and the Flynn leaks occur after that. They'd collected the data on Flynn all during December. They were surveilling the Russian ambassador and who knows who else. Flynn was unmasked and should never have been. There's a real crime that has occurred, and not just with Flynn, but all these others that were captured the way Flynn was. And then here came the innuendo. Just because Flynn was talking to the Russian ambassador, proved, in quotes, in the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN, that there had to be illicit discussions going on. They had laid the foundation that Trump and Putin worked together to steal the election from Hillary, beginning the day after the election, not before, when they thought they were going to win, but the day after. Flynn was scooped up, he was hoovered up in an incidental bit of surveillance with the Russian ambassador, and who knows who else. That's where the real crime is in all this. The real crime has occurred in the Obama intelligence agencies, Justice Department, you name it. That's where, if we want to start talking about Watergate-style stuff, that's where it happened. And everything since then is designed to cover this up. With ontological certitude that we know the Obama administration, intelligence agencies, operatives, spies, whoever, listened in on conversations involving Trump aides, campaign advisors, transition officials. We know it. How do we know it? Because their identities have been leaked. How do you know the name Roger Stone involved in this? Why do you know the name Carter Page? Why do you know the name Paul Manafort? Those names are thrown out there like, whoa, everybody knows Manafort was double dealing. Everybody knows Manafort got deals under the table with Ukraine and the Russians. Everybody knows that Roger Stone's doing things, dirty tricks with Roger. And everybody knows that Carter paid him. How does everybody know? Everybody knows because they've been unmasked. The only reason the drive-bys know any of this stuff is because Obama intelligence operatives leaked the data, the information that was obtained, incidentally, overhearing their conversations with targeted surveillance aimed at others. When that happens in the normal flow of things, if you're surveilling bad guy A, and bad guy A is a terrorist sympathizer in the UK, so you're surveilling bad guy A. Bad guy A happens to be well connected in the British government. He happens to make a call to the Trump transition because this guy's trying to ingratiate himself. One of the people he calls, pick a name, is Paul Manafort. So Manafort's on the call. They're surveilling bad guy A. Here's Manafort talking to him. When that happens, Manafort gets redacted. What he says gets redacted for the record, and he's referred to as American number one. The only thing, as a matter of law, that the intel agencies can look at, examine, and pass on is what bad guy A is saying. What happened here is the Obama embeds did not redact Manafort, and they didn't refer to him as American number one. They called the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN. And they eluded. They might have even shared transcripts, I don't know. But they certainly told reporters, sympathetic, hey, we've got Manafort talking to bad guy A. Really? Yep. You tell us what they were discussing? I can't tell you that, but they're talking Russia. they're talking Trump transition. Really? Here comes a story. Intelligence officials have revealed. And the New York Times builds it up, and they'll even might admit that the information was obtained wiretapped information or intercepted communications. And then as these things go on, Manafort's name suddenly appears in one of these stories. Ditto Carter Page. They may have nothing to do with anything nefarious, but that doesn't matter either. The New York Times and the Washington Post and the Obama intelligence embeds will take care of that. It's very easy to create an illusion of malfeasance taking place. And the stories keep coming. There were lots of them in December, November, lots of them in January, the day before Trump's inauguration. By now, everybody knows the New York Times had that headline in the print version that used wiretaps in a headline story above the fold. Every one of these stories also contained a very small paragraph, usually buried way down toward the end. Officials have yet to find any conclusive evidence of whatever the subject of the story is, collusion, quid pro quo. There's never been a quid pro quo found, meaning all of this talk about these Trump people dealing with the Russians, there hasn't been one payback for the Russians yet. The Russians haven't had one thing accrue to them as a benefit of Trump winning the presidency. So we know, folks, we know this happened. And we know it because the media told us. This is why Nunes has canceled the public hearing on Tuesday and rescheduled it as a closed session to bring Comey and the NSA back guy, because Nunes, I'm sure what he saw on Wednesday was evidence of what I just told you. And that's why he called it legal, because the surveillance was the foreign bad guys. And he called it incidental because it was incidental that Trump people were caught up in it. They were not targets. So the media and everybody can say, it's silly. Trump wasn't targeted. He's insane. Obama would never do that. Wrong. You don't have to target Trump to overhear him in a phone conversation. You just have to know who he's talking to and target them. Same thing with anybody in his transition team. Just know who they're talking to. And even if you need to get a FISA warrant, who knows? But as we also know, Obama was famous for warrantless wiretaps. Just go surveil him. Waning days of the regime, change the rule, allow 16 other agents. That allows the information to get out. If you share your raw intel with 16 other intelligence, you're guaranteeing somebody's going to leak it. You might not even have to. You might not have to have your embeds leak it. No, give it to some foreign country that hates Trump. Give it to some intelligence individual who hates Trump. You can target who gets it. You can make sure the people that get the raw intel you're sharing hate Trump. The media doesn't care. They'll take it. They hate Trump. Whoever gives it to them, automatic credibility. Because the narrative's already written. Trump cheated, stole the election from Hillary, worked with Putin to do it. Starting the night of the election. It's really important to remember that the day of the election, before the election, all those days before, never one allusion to the Russians tampering with this to screw Hillary, because they were going to win. Remember, they were going to win in a landslide. It was going to be the greatest election. It was going to be so celebratory. They were so happy. They weren't talking about the election. To the extent they were talking about it being stolen, they were talking about Trump doing it because he was refusing to accept the election results. Remember, it was so certain that they were going to win that they were on Trump's case for not admitting in a debate that he would accept the election results. They weren't talking to anybody about themselves getting screwed. But shortly after 9 p.m. election night, when the first indications that a major heart attack was to happen to the American left's body began to be indicated. First indications started to show up. That's when they began to set the narrative that our elections have been tampered with, our democratic elections. never forget that every one of these people, from Comey to the admiral at the NSA, everybody, is there any evidence the Russians tampered with the vote? No. Any evidence the Russians tampered with the counting of? No. Is there any evidence the Russians have tampered with voting? No. Is there any evidence that the Russians had lawyers on? No. Is there any evidence whatsoever that the Russians knew which voting? No. Is there any evidence whatsoever the Russians helped count the elections in certain states in Wisconsin and no. There is no evidence whatsoever that the vote, which is what an election is, was tampered with. So therefore, what did these guys do? What was all this collusion with the Russians aimed at? Well, they told us to steal the election, but that couldn't happen. And I'm telling you, when Shifty, that's my new name for Adam Schiff, when Pencil Neck Shifty goes out there and starts wringing his hands about how bad a guy Devin Nunes is and all that, whenever these guys, everything that you're seeing reported about this story now is designed to deflect attention from where the real criminality might have occurred here, and that is in the collection of incidental intelligence on Americans and unmasking them. And that happened in the waning days of the Obama administration. And so, therefore, everything the media is doing, every Democrat that speaks up about this, is designed to deflect your attention away from that. And they're using Trump's tweet about Obama tapping his wires at Trump Tower as a main. What an idiot. That's absurd. Obama would never. He's too classy. He's too perfect. Obama's too sophisticated. Obama couldn't care less about you. He would never do that is to throw ridiculous suspicion on the whole premise. Everything they're saying about it is a smokescreen and a deflection operation. But we know it happened. And we know it happened because the media told us it happened, because the media reported on it happening. There is no investigation is needed to find out what happened. The investigation needs to focus on who did it, who authorized it, who authorized the unmasking of these Americans who were not surveilled, who gave the order to surveil people so that these Americans could be surveilled, who did all that. That's where this investigation needs to go. And that, I predict, is where it will end up going. And even Bob Woodward of Watergate fame said that if that investigation starts, that it's going to look bad for Obama administration peoples, and it is going to obliterate whatever Watergate was. And we will be back. Instrumental in getting Obamacare passed. And he's still there. They've got a three-top up. They've got their big pictures of the debate in the House floor. Then they got the anchorette, which is Dana Perino. Then they got Hoyer. Now they got a two-top. Dana Perino's not on. And Hoyer just said, I think it's really unfortunate that Barack Obama cannot come here and look through the lens of your camera and tell you that the bill being debated on the House is something he would support. Barack Obama said that he would support anything that improved on the affordability of whatever all the wonderful things are in Obamacare. And I can tell you he's very disappointed he cannot come here and look through the lens of your camera and tell you that he supports this. Seriously? We're going to bring Obama into this, and we're going to tell everybody that this is really bad. It's really doubly bad because not even Obama can support it. These guys still think they're running the show. And I guess if you have run the show for 50 years, it's hard in 3 months to start acting like losers. And on the same token, it's hard for our guys who've been losers all their lives to one day start acting like winners. I mean, that is a psychological adjustment, especially when you didn't think you were going to win and you might not have wanted to. We won. We have to lead. Oh, excrement. Who knows? Hey, folks, it often takes a neighborhood crime incident to occur for an increased awareness of home security. It's one of these sad things. that after some bad thing happens, that's when you decide to do something to stop it the next time. But it's human nature. It is the way things are. Meaning, in your neighborhood, somebody down the street would have their house broken into. Yours didn't get broken into, but theirs did, and you said, wow, okay, I got to step up. Everybody in the neighborhood says, we got to get home security. There's no reason to wait for this. Why wait for an unfortunate... Well, I can't afford... Yes, you can. See, you can. That's the thing. Simply Safe's home security system is one that you can decide on having today, knowing that's a system that you can install yourself. And by the way, just because you can install it yourself doesn't mean anything other than it's state-of-the-art. There's no site survey, nobody tramping through your house, no walls ripped apart, no wires run. You can do it. It's all wireless. Most people live with the idea that obtaining home security requires a team of people, inspections, sign-offs on forms, and they show up again with the requisite number of miles of wire, and not necessary with Simply Safe. The entire system operates wirelessly. It allows you to set the sensors yourself on the doors and windows you want, and you turn it on. Motion sensors, glass breaking sensors, as much detail as you want. HD cameras, one or a few, wherever you want them. Everything talks to each other with Wi-Fi and connects to the cops and the fire department with cellular. By the way, that's optional. You don't have to have that reporting and monitoring. And if you do, it's $14.99 a month. I mean, not $15. There's no contracts to sign. Even the Simply Safe monitoring service, $14.99 a month. So check it out at simplysafeusa.com. That's the website. And if you happen to buy anything, just using that website will get you 10% off whatever the purchase price is. This was created, the mother of invention, often the necessity. College kids wanted to have a secure system in their apartments. Landlords said no, they did it themselves, and it worked out so well. It was the usual, you need to market this thing, Fred. Everybody loves this. So Fred did. SimplySafeUSA.com. Brief timeout. Come back and wrap things up.